God is my witness, I tell you the truth. I'm a carpenter who chose Galilee as a place to live in and ply my trade. I was engaged to a young woman named Miriam, or Mary. Mary's willingness to accept me was a welcome surprise. To be engaged to such young and vibrant girl was a joy I no longer expected. You see, my first wife died in childbirth. And for a long time I had given up hope of marrying again. But then Mary entered my life. Her sweet innocence was an antidote for my sadness. But I still found it difficult to broach the possibility of marriage with her parents.
Within a month of their engagement, Mary learned of her elder cousin Elizabeth's pregnancy and requested to visit to offer her help. It's a very typical thing for women to do. Elizabeth was in her final stages of pregnancy, so Mary went to be with her to help with household chores.
I had not seen Mary for over 2 months, and I was looking forward to seeing her again after Elizabeth delivered her son. I imagined the bright and vivacious girl running to meet me. About 3 months later, Mary returned, and my happiness came to a crushing end. Pregnant. Pregnant!
Joseph was overcome with confusion. Being a proud and religious Jew who could trace his ancestry back to the revered King David, he felt unprepared to be involved in a situation as shameful as this.
My world was turned upside down. I tell you the truth, I was not the father. How could she? This pregnancy was more than a matter of personal betrayal. Like me, Mary was a descendant of David. She knew the Torah and the requirements it placed on a believing Jew. How could she have been so foolish? When did the conception take place? Was she already pregnant when she agreed to accept my marriage proposal? Is that why she accepted me?
Joseph's options were limited, and none of them attractive. He could act on his indignation and shame Mary by publicly declaring that he was not the father of the baby she was carrying. Where should he turn? Working at a shop was impossible. He would not be able to concentrate on woodworking with a burden like this.
I did not want to shame Mary, but marriage seemed impossible. The additional disgrace for her was that she too was of the line of David, from which the promised Messiah was to come.
Joseph decided to visit the rabbi. So as early as possible, he went to the rabbi's home. The rabbi was obviously annoyed at having a visitor so early in the morning, but his annoyance was elevated to consternation when Joseph explained the nature of his visit.
My rabbi was shocked. Unmarried and pregnant? Things like that don't happen in upright Jewish families. Joseph, he said, I believe you, but if you are not the father, who is? That man, if he is a Jew, will have to marry Miriam. I told him, I don't know, Rabbi. Mary won't tell me who the man is. No, that's not right. What she said was she became pregnant without having sexual relations, and she expects me to believe her.
It was noon hour, and Joseph was on his way home from seeing his rabbi. The visit to Mary's parents was a near disaster. Her mother was almost hysterical. Over and over, all she could say was, she's a good girl. How could she allow this to happen? How can we face our neighbors? How can we go to worship? Why did she do this? Talking to them was futile. And clearly, they were frightened by the prospect of having an unwed, pregnant girl in their home. Instead of giving answers, they were expecting Joseph to produce a solution.
So I returned to my shop. Further discussion with Mary's parents was pointless. It seemed I had 2 choices. Deny publicly that I was the father of the child Mary was carrying, which would leave her disgraced and condemned by the community, or marry her and allow people to think that I was the child's father and accept the embarrassment and ridicule. Then one night, I awoke in a cold sweat. What I heard was more than a dream. The voice was clear and the words unmistakable. Do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. What was I to make of it? Did it confirm that the young woman told me about her pregnancy? She couldn't keep her condition a secret for long. Even Andrew the potter, who harbored some unwarranted envy, taunted me. Joseph, couldn't you wait?
Decision time. An edict by Caesar. A worldwide tax. Joseph had to travel to Bethlehem, to his family's ancestral home, to be counted. Should he take Mary?
After much prayer and meditation, I made my decision. I had no doubt the voice I heard in my dream was from God. So I chose to obey my Lord and accept Mary's miraculous story. I would marry her and take Mary with me to Bethlehem. The child had to be protected at all costs, even if it meant accepting the false accusations that I had been intimate with Mary due to my willingness to marry her.
Joseph withstood his own fears as well as the taunts and haranguing of others. Like Mary, Joseph surrendered himself to God's will and assumed the role of the Lord's servant. Years later, Christ would do the same thing and teach his disciples to do likewise.
After 2 years in Bethlehem, the most horrible, unspeakable evil occurred. King Herod sent out an edict that all baby boys 2 years of age and under will be killed in every household in and around Bethlehem. It was then I had the same kind of dream. The voice said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you to leave, for Herod is going to look for the child to kill him." This time I welcomed the vision. I had been in doubt about my ability to be the protective husband and father Mary and the child needed. I could not even give Mary a decent and clean place to give birth. That was a real low point in our strange odyssey. But there were many visitors who came to see the child when he was first born. Some worshipped him, some brought him gifts, which was very puzzling, but wonderful. Some told us amazing stories about angels, that Mary's child was the promised Messiah, and about being led by a star. Whatever doubt I had about Mary's pregnancy vanished. I wasn't certain this child was the Messiah. After all, why would God choose a simple man like me to help raise the promised one? But whoever this boy was, I knew he was special. So to get back to my story, we fled to Alexandria in Egypt, as I was instructed in my dream. Alexandria did prove to be a hospitable place to hide, and we blended in well with the Jewish community there.
As time passed, it surprised and delighted Joseph that Jesus adored and respected him. Joseph was his hero. Jesus followed his father everywhere, and with good reason. He was a good father and mentor. Although not a rabbi, Joseph was steeped in Jewish tradition and law and was a very patient and excellent teacher. Jesus was a sponge, soaking up everything Joseph had to offer, and was fascinated by his father's craftsmanship that dignified his work.
It was quite some time since I fled with my small family to Alexandria, and my family was growing. I was so pleased that the attachment between Jesus and me continued to grow very strong. The boy was exceptionally bright, and though he was too young and too small to perform a carpenter's task, he knew every detail of a skilled carpenter's planning and execution for providing yokes for oxen and furniture for the home.
When the word came that Herod, who sought the child's life, had died, Joseph wasn't sure it was good news. This meant they could return to Palestine. But Mary and Joseph had just